Hello, welcome to Tarnished Bronze, where we uncover some of the more difficult and darker, or we're not darker in the sense of the Dark Knight, but darker and unheralded parts of the Bronze Age of comic books. And so I am joined by my co-host Patrick, and we are going to start by looking at the Avengers issue 286 to 290. And so, Patrick, tell us about your history with the Avengers.
I think I probably started reading the Avengers when I was around 10, probably 1984, I would say. I think probably around issue 250 or so. And as I've said before, it was very difficult to find comics in Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky. So you would usually get a comic maybe in March, and then you wouldn't find the same series at the grocery store maybe until the middle of summer. And so you just have to use your imagination to kind of figure out what happened with the team in the ensuing months. So it could be very difficult to follow the storylines and really appreciate them, as opposed to when you can read the same writer writing multiple issues in a row and really building a story. So.
So I can appreciate that the comics came to the newsagents in Australia in small country towns, and sometimes you would get three or four in a row, and then sometimes it would be 2 or 3 months before you got that same title or a similar um, run. So yeah, I can understand the frustration, especially in the multi-part epics, which the Bronze Age is sort of famous for getting into this serialized fiction. And so, speaking of serialized fiction, we've got Roger Stern, the Karate Kid Ralph Macchio, and Big John Buscema doing these issues. And Roger Stern, I'm not really much of an Avengers head, but Roger Stern has a big run on the Avengers, and I imagine that that's what captured you originally, right?
Yeah, I love him as a writer. I didn't realize at the time that I was responding to him as a writer because I was definitely more focused on just the characters and the battles and the art, and not really recognizing who the creators were. I wasn't really something that I paid much attention to as a kid, which I probably should have. But looking back, yeah, Roger Stern's run on the X-Men, or excuse me, on the Avengers, which lasted for many, many, many years, was definitely my favorite Avengers run, I think, that I've ever read. This
And
is him finishing up his run. So he was still the writer for the first few issues of this story. And then, as you said, the Karate Kid took over, and the rest is history. So.
and Roger Stern is not a happy camper. There's some acrimonious sort of stuff going on in behind the scenes, which in one of the letters columns, I think they do get into, which just goes to show that these creators are humans as well. John Buscema, by the way, has been doing art, I think, since the 40s. Like he's in romance comics. He does a great Conan. He can make a sliding truck scene seem somewhat interesting, which is basically a big rectangular prism, which is one of the most boring things you could ever conceive of drawing. So we'll get into how he makes some real hay out of some duff material here.
Absolutely.
But what has happened to this point? So I look at these covers. I know the Submariner Namor. I know this is a balding middle aged John Costanza version of Doctor Strange, it seems, and we've got She Hulk, who I do like, and Black Knight, who has an ebon blade, which is pretty amazing. And then some strange. There's a strange butterfly looking lady on the cover. So this is not the Avengers that your grandparents grew up with.
Yeah, they would probably consider him a B team a bit. I'd say even more of a B team than the previous team, which might have been considered somewhat a B team. So we've
Is
got
that because John Byrne is stealing all the good characters for his West Coast Avengers, or is it
maybe a little bit of that, and then
okay?
also I think well, Captain America's gone missing, so that's right off the top. We've got him taken out of rotation. Uh,
Okay.
And then the Wasp has sort of gone into quasi-retirement. Thor is off dealing with his issues. This might have been around the time where he was wearing his exoskeleton armor because of some kind of curse or something. I can't remember exactly what was going on with him in the 80s, but he grew the beard, he had the extra armor, he was in pain, all he had chronic pain. I think he was on opioids. It was a long story. But so some of
Sounds like a long story.
so some of these characters that we're more familiar with have been taken out of rotation for the Avengers, and what we're left with is Butterfly Lady is actually Captain Marvel, I think now known as Photon. She's the chairwoman at the behest of Captain America before he leaves. We've got Namor, who is the former Prince of Atlantis,
But
uh,
not king.
not the king. Not
Not
we
so he's Mohammed Gaddafiing it. He's playing it low key. I don't want to be a general, just a colonel. Don't want to be a king, just a prince.
It
Yeah.
might have been an age-related thing. He might not have people like to be called Mademoiselle rather
Well,
than
I mean, he did
Madame,
fight in World War II, so he can't be that young, really. I mean, come on.
but he's still a prince. So I don't know. When we've got Black Knight, like you said, sort of a personality from the Crusades time who has been shunted into present day, and the aforementioned fan favorite Dr. Druid. Everybody loves Dr. Druid in his red onesie. He can seamlessly go from battle to bedtime without even changing clothes. And I think, oh, and the She-Hulk. So, who has sort of rejoined the Avengers after her stint with the Fantastic Four.
So full-time Fantastic Forest, full-time Avenger, and now on a television show. So, she's come full circle in 40 years.
She,
Like the Martha Stewart of the Marvel universe.
she's not started branding products yet, but it's only a matter of time. So,
Great. So we somehow getting into this sort of interstitial stage. We've wrapped up one big chunk of Avengers stuff, and we're into a brand new era. And Captain America himself has anointed Captain Marvel as the head of the Avengers, but nonetheless, it's not going to be straightforward. And there's still some hangovers from the invasion of the Avengers mansion with our villain of the day. So let's take it away. Let's see what's happening in this bad boy.
So this issue starts with the Fixer using a remote controlled human. He uses his gadgets to control someone's mind, and this human steals back his gadgets where they're being studied by people who
Scientists,
study gadgets.
engineers.
I don't know. And the this remote controlled human places all of his gadgets on as if he's the fixer and flies straight through a plate glass window to take them back to their
I,
own.
I did think that was a good conceit to have. I thought as a naive reader that was the fixer. So my inner 8-year-old like went along with that.
Like, oh, is this the fixer? And he's putting on, no, 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 no. He's just been remote controlled to bring the fixer's paraphernalia back to him. So, and meanwhile, Dr. Druid is spying on his teammates, which is exactly what we look for in a good teammate, is someone who will mentally eavesdrop on what we're doing and sort of plot against us. So,
Great leadership qualities.
yeah, definitely right off the bat, we think, wow, what a great guy. Like Dr. Druid. Who wouldn't
This
want
is
to be
my
friends
introduction to Dr. Druid. I thought he was a villainous plant. He's not. He's just a
with the hero? He's just an asshole.
yeah, which
Can we say
takes
that?
one takes all sorts to make a world.
It does. In a way, looking back, I despised him as a 13, 14-year-old. I despise him as a 50-year-old. Yeah, he's pretty despicable, but in a way, I guess it makes for an interesting story, right? So we can't just have one team where everybody gets along and everybody's
No
valorous.
conflict, no drama.
Exactly.
No
So, and I
conflict,
appreciate
no
that,
drama.
but maybe we could have found it in a different form. I don't know. I'm not a fan. Um, so they're rebuilding Avengers Mansion. They're doing it at Hydra Base, if for people who are familiar with this time period. They've decided not to rebuild in New York. It's just too messy. The
So
Avengers.
they're freebasing cocaine in the New Jersey. Is that what they're doing?
Well, they've decided
Different type of base.
they need to be in international waters, I think. Maybe maybe that's the whole idea. Um, Captain America's missing. We don't know where he is. All we know is that the government's been urging him to work directly for them, and he's been resistant. And so
The
he's
more things change, Patrick, the more they stay the same. So he's just hating on the government. He doesn't want a bar of what they want to do. He's even had to change his togs or his outfit.
yep.
So he's in the US agent guise right now, I believe, tooling around on a motorcycle. So
Hmm.
there's some backstory, a lot of backstory going on. That's another reason why we don't necessarily have the A listers. They're all involved in their own brouhahas,
Exactly.
I suppose.
Peccadillos, if you will.
Yeah.
So the fixer gets his paraphernalia from his pawn and makes a point that he's not going to fall into the cliche of revealing his plan. Excuse me, in a long, drawn out speech. So the reader is left in suspense. What's going on with the fixer? What is he doing? But we do know that part of his plan is going after these five MacGuffins, and I'm wondering, can we consider these MacGuffins?
If there's five of them, you can bet your bottom dollar that it is a MacGuffin.
Definitely a MacGuffin. At the time, I don't know that a MacGuffin was a thing in 1987, but now we know better. We live and learn. So he also drops a line, a very mysterious line about his human enemies, and we're left wondering, is Fixer a lizard person? I'm not really sure what's going on. And like I said earlier to you, if it had been many years since I'd read this, so I kind of wasn't even sure what that meant. I knew it had significance, but even having read this, I was like, yeah, wow, what's he mean by that? So we'll find out soon enough.
There's a lot of subtext in this, and we've got Namor's offsider, who I'm blanking on. Is it Marina or Mariana?
Marina.
Marina, and so you know there's a power imbalance in that relationship, and there's also just a frank attractiveness imbalance in that relationship as well. It's
It,
just a
it
very
is
bizarre pairing.
very confusing to me. I mean, we've got Namor. He does have these odd drag queen inspired eyebrows, plucked for the gods, as you might say, but still, he is royalty. He's in great shape. He runs around wearing a Speedo, right? But meanwhile, he's in love with this Marina who's half alien and sort of looks like she's suffering from liver failure. I don't know. She's a
She is
very,
definitely suffering, and we'll get into that in a future episode. Stay tuned.
if you thought she looked bad now, just stay tuned. Yeah, she's definitely in for it. Um, but Dr. Druid takes a break from questioning Captain Marvel's every move and stepping on her toes as much as possible to summon the team, and the team sets off to find the fixer who is reprogramming the awesome android, who is basically a big lump of gray Play-Doh. I know this is one
And
of
and
your
you're short
characters.
selling it. I mean, John Buscema is a phenomenal artist. He's been around. I think he's born in 1925. So, I mean, he was an artist post-war, I guess, on all those romance titles. He can draw the hell out of anything. He can even make an amorphous blob of clay look look somewhat emotive, and so that is a hell of a thing. He can make a whole page of just a truck driving not seem like the worst thing that you could ever imagine. So, I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting going on in the art to make this actually pretty readable. To be honest,
Yeah, and like you said, lots of words, 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 words. That's it's sort of noted for the day. I think I don't read a ton of current comic books. A lot fewer words these days. So
But to be fair, the words are in the characters' mouths. There's not too much captioning,
100%.
because
And the
Buscema
characterization
draws
is
these
good.
beautiful things. He draws these beautiful things. You don't need to caption it, but you do need to nonetheless fill your day up with melodrama, and so it is here in spades.
And the
Um,
characterization is very good. Each is a fully fleshed out character. They all come from different sort of places in terms of what their motivations are, what their backgrounds are. You know, we've got royalty, we've got someone from the Crusades time, we've got a woman in power who's questioning herself and being undermined by a man, which is very much an 80s trope and that maybe doesn't ring as true to our modern ears, but was definitely a thing back then. And then, of course, She-Hulk, who is fun-loving and sort of gregarious. So each of the characters is really fully fleshed out and has their own distinct personality, which is something that you look for in a team book. Always my favorite team books when I was a kid, still to this day, definitely the ones that I enjoy the most.
so these ones, there's definitely a visual element and a characterization element, and that
Absolutely.
is something that I enjoy. And the team has been split up though. So the team is split up here.
Yeah, so at first, when they sort of approached the awesome android, for some reason, I try to defend Captain Marvel, but she is written pretty weakly. She's constantly questioning herself. She really, even though she's been with the team for many years, she's allowing a newcomer in the form of Dr. Druid really undermine her and make her question all of her decisions. Maybe there's a little bit of mental telepathy that's at play there that's causing her to do that as well. I don't think that that's ever brought into the storyline, but maybe we as the readers can infer that.
Well,
But
stay tuned.
yeah. But for unknown reasons, she tries to reason with the awesome android, this massive faceless automaton. She thinks, let's not attack him. Let's try to talk to him like he's, just a harmless child. Not maybe not the wisest thing. He scans her with what can only be described as maybe the processor of a Commodore
So
64.
you think it's got transistors in it, not valves?
I
Like,
mean, or like vacuum tubes.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's very much an Atari looking interface that we're working with, and she's knocked out.
Pixels.
She's
Pixels
knocked
up
out
the yin
by.
yang.
Say what?
He's got pixels up the yin yang on
Yeah.
that
Oh,
visual. Yeah.
yes. Or a lack of pixels. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very, very low res. And she's knocked out by a gas canister. By the fixer is unconscious. She's rendered him unconscious, but he has automatic weapons that deploy. And of course, to take such a powerful character out of the story as quickly as possible, she's knocked out by a canister of gas. And this is something that we see a lot in team books where we have maybe someone who is a little too overpowered. We have to either limit her powers in some way or take her out of the storyline. Otherwise, she just blasts everybody with electromagnetic energy, and the story's over. So, in order to have some stakes, which I know you love, on the tennis court in your comic books, in order to have these stakes, we have to sort of take out our most powerful player, and that unfortunately renders Captain Marvel as appearing even more weak than she already did seem. And you
And to a novice reader of this iteration of Captain Marvel, who's not in the blue suit with the star, it's a different butterfly Captain Marvel here. This is my window to her, and the only window I'm seeing is this undermining of her character by all the other Avengers, basically, or just going along with her kind of wishy-washiness, not knowing myself that she was kind of endorsed by Steve Rogers. So it's even more upsetting in many ways that this is just being par for the course.
and I can't say this enough. I mentioned that I sort of came in around 250. She's been a member of the Avengers since then. I mean, she's been around for a while.
Yeah, no, an astonishing amount of time considering, that's 4 years, about just under 50 issues, probably. Over 20% of the Avengers' lifetime, she's been in it. So that seems pretty legitimate enough to me. And so she's knocked out. what's going on with the rest of the Avengers now that the biggest, cosmic level person is down?
So we have a nice fight scene where Marina leaves to track the getaway truck. Um, the awesome android, for some unknown reason, has super breath. I have no idea really why or where that comes from. But the uh, the awesome android has a nerve ganglia weakness.
Oh, I've
So,
heard of them. Yeah.
so
It's
his
right next to the craw, I believe.
Yes, I mean, it's yeah, it can be damage from overuse, I think, but in this case, I think She-Hulk is directed to hit him in the ganglia, as they say, and the plan works, and she knocks him out, and also she happens for whatever reason to be super horny, and kisses, um, she kisses one of the characters. Who did?
Yeah, no, it sounds very strange. I don't know if we're reading the same book, but I guess that's what titillating the nerve ganglia will do for you. It just sets you right off.
Yeah.
Um,
And in a moment straight out of Scooby Doo, the Fixer is unmasked, and it's not the Fixer. He's gotten away, and he has Marina in his clutches. She's the truck. She has been captured as a novice that she is, and she's in the actual Fixer's clutches. And we find out that this hasn't been the Fixer the entire time.
so we have talked about the art a little bit, but I will just mention again Buscema draws a hell of a lab. He draws a great Avengers HQ. All of these things look like they will legitimately work. And he does have a little bit of a kink to him. If he ties someone up in a Conan comic, that knot is going to work. So Buscema does a lot of good design. I love his fixer. His fixer is ahead of the game. I counted, I think, 53 pouches on the fixer in this issue. So that's almost a Millie Liefeld
All the
level of
bells and
pouch work,
whistles.
just looking great. He's, looks like a real dream. It's a really strong visual. And our guy from the start, the scientist who was captured, his name is Todd Martin, but life's not over for him. Once he's just been sort of, tossed aside by the fixer, if you will, he has a rich and fulfilling life ahead of him. Patrick, what happens to Todd Martin?
Todd Martin immediately begins taking tennis lessons, and in 7 short years, will reach the U.S. Open final, a Grand Slam tournament. Now
Yeah, no, it's astonishing.
he does lose, but it's an amazing achievement.
And then in 1999, he makes the Australian Open final, I believe. So, I
Backing it
mean,
up, which
yeah,
is, yeah, you would almost think a one slam final wonder, but no, he wins two or makes it to two finals, doesn't win two. He doesn't win a Grand Slam. It's a shame, but you know what? Maybe if he hadn't been abused by the fixer, maybe his nerve ganglia was in
yeah, no, that's
you know,
probably, yeah, that's
it
key
actually
to
could
it.
be. But and now he's the president of the International Tennis Federation, Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
So
no, so that's another little tidbit. The other thing I was getting from this is the body language is really great. The facial expressions, Buscema really sells it. He's very, very good at that. You could blow that stuff up, put it on a gallery wall, and charge $1 million, and people would call it pop art. He is really, really good at that. My
if
best
you
panels,
even just look at
page.
if you even just look at these covers,
Oh,
they're excellent.
yeah.
So much action, the placement of the characters, like you said, the body language here, excellent. Love it.
So yeah, and I do have to pick out a few panels. Page 7, panel number 2. I don't know if you can kind of describe that from the literature there, but that definitely is one of my favorites. Just just I really, really love the rubble. I love the face. I love the pouches. I love the pseudo 3D effect. Probably took about 6 minutes to do, but nonetheless looks really top notch. Um, and page 1, panel 3 is just super bizarre. like reading it through the third eye of the mind on that first page there. Todd Martin is,
Yeah, he's got.
he's really in a lot of trouble. And
And then
then
look in the next one how his expression has changed and how utterly
just
evil he looks.
just so good. And the body language on the very last panel of the very last page, just menacing is the word. I mean, I don't think we can do these things in 2024. Um, it just really sells some material which is obviously going through in the background some a lot of stresses with personnel and different writers and stuff like that. And I just want to bring to your attention, Patrick, we could be reading Fall of the Mutants right now. Why aren't we reading that?
Um, why aren't we reading that?
Yeah, why aren't we reading Fall of the Mutants?
I mean, as far as well, this is the end of Roger Stern's run. I would say Roger Stern's run on the Avengers is at least as good as the Fall of the Mutants. Um, Starting with Fall of the Mutants, I feel like maybe the X-Men became a bit uh it just wasn't the same book as it was before, and maybe I'm averse to change, but I really hated how the team was sort of upended at that point. So maybe I'm why we're not.
Reluctant to change.
Yeah, a little. The Fall of the Mutant. Okay, so I was thinking of the Mutant Massacre. Fall of Mutants is after that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, we've got the X-Men in the Outback, and again, no offense, my family is also from Australia, so full disclosure. So I have an appreciation for the bush, and I don't mean.
We don't do those sort of innuendos on this
Sorry,
channel.
sorry, sorry. I was waiting for that. Um, but that storyline once we got rid of Nightcrawler and Kitty, Colossus was sort of mortally wounded. After the Mutant Massacre, I sort of was starting to slowly fall out of love with the X-Men. So maybe I'm the reason why we're not reading The Fall of the Mutants.
So that's fine. Thanks for providing the context to that, because I've got some context also in the back issue prices. So Dark Knight is a little bit above cover price. ElfQuest, Grendel, and Grips are mentioned, but they're all cover price. And believe it or not, G.I. Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Watchmen can all be found for cover price in these back issues. Now, even next episode, when we talk about the next issue, that is not going to be the case. So I think we're going to leave it here with Mariana about to be assaulted by the Fixer, and we will stay tuned because you guys are in for a treat with my favorite cover of this run, issue 287, coming up next.
Sounds good. Okay, that was good timing. We have a minute and 30. Do you have the timer on your side?
No, so if you just like stop now and
Yeah,
then
let
just
me
I'll
stop
call.
recording.
Yeah.